Goodyear believes in the power of moving forward. No matter if it's on the track, the court, or the field, movement makes us want to be more. It pushes us to go further, to show the world what we can do. Movement has the unique ability to change our perspective, to challenge us, to work for a better tomorrow. Movement can even bring us together when we're still. Because if we're focused on the next move, we don't have to worry about what's behind us. Goodyear, more driven.
The pride, passion, and pageantry of college football lives here. This is the Paul Feinbaum Show, Hour 4 podcast.
And we are back. The final hour has arrived, and one thing we have done this afternoon is talk to a number of young student, well, that speaks for itself, student reporters and editors on college campuses as we go back to school this week. We've been a couple of places, and our final stop of this afternoon is in Knoxville, and we're joined by Josh Lane, who is the sports editor of the UT Daily Beacon. Josh, thanks so much for being with us. Congratulations on that position. And how are you as you get ready for a fall in Knoxville, Tennessee?
Yeah, Paul, thanks for having me. I'm doing pretty well. We just started back on classes Wednesday, had a couple, Daily Beacon meetings the last couple of days. So we're getting back into the swing of things. It's been fun so far. I'm looking forward to it.
Let's talk about what's going on at practice and what we know. Sometimes coaches are helpful and sometimes they make you guess. The quarterback situation seems to be where all eyes are right now in Josh Heupel's first fall. What does it look like to you?
Yeah, well, so far, Heupel has been playing the cards close to his chest. He has not been willing to give a starter yet. I kind of have the feeling that, within the program, they've got their depth chart made out and maybe they've got the top guy, but they're not announcing it yet. It's hard to imagine that 10 days before the first game, they're still undecided. But they haven't released anything to the public yet. So far, I would say Joe Milton has probably been the guy that stood out as far as his size and athleticism and, the strong arm that he has. But Josh Heupel's been, not really willing to name a starter yet. So that's kind of what everybody's waiting on right now.
Now, coaches are always different about that. Considering who the opponent is for the first game, I doubt, this is just an opinion, it really will make any difference. But do you guess that Heupel is just that type of a coach that doesn't want to give anything away, or maybe he really just doesn't know? Hard to believe that, though.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think he's just a coach that doesn't want to give it away. Some of his, assistants, his defensive coordinators, and all they've talked about that, not wanting to give away their base defense. And also, I think that's just kind of a trait within the coaching staff. But you mentioned their first opponent, Bowling Green. I think they're going to beat Bowling Green regardless of if they have, a couple of days of prep for the Tennessee's quarterback or not. So I think it's just something that's within Heupel and his coaching staff, just this willingness to keep all the cards close to their chest, get every advantage that they can.
Josh, let's talk about this team because it's old news now that so many great players departed for elsewhere. I mean, we're talking about some of the stalwarts of the last couple of years in Knoxville. But how do you think it's gone, without having seen him coach a game yet, other than in the spring? But how do you think it's gone so far for Josh Heupel?
Well, so far, besides this quarterback thing, I would say so far so good for Josh Heupel. At least within the program and within the players, right? The kind of the mentality that some of the players had that they were talking about under Jeremy Pruitt there at the end was how much of a chore it was, coming into practice. It felt like going into work on Monday mornings. And so far, the players have had great reviews for Josh Heupel. And the vibes, the culture that they're getting there in the program, it's been radically different. So I think everybody loves playing for him. I think he makes it fun. I think he's still staying disciplined and teaching, but he's got that balance to where they enjoy it, to where they love coming in and playing football for him.
It seems like certain narratives have been formulated in one. Well, Tennessee may not win a lot this year, but it's going to be much more exciting to watch. I know that won't satisfy Vol fans for a long time, but is that a fair description of what we're about to get into?
Yeah, I think that's fair because obviously with Heupel, the thing that he brings is that offense, and that's something that Tennessee has been well documented and lacking. So, just bringing that offense, having some quarterback competition, and maybe a starter whenever they name it that, might play the entire year and might be pretty good. I think that's something that, that's something that fans are excited for. Now, whether or not that means Tennessee wins 8 games this year, I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's still a work in progress. It's just Heupel's first year, so give him time. But I do think that we're going to start seeing that progression, and it might even start with, a big offensive night next Thursday against Bowling Green.
As you look at the schedule, there's certainly some flashpoint games, and a lot of the colleagues that we talk to here have pointed toward Pittsburgh as being a really important game. I mean, they're all important. Let's not get caught up in cliches, but because it's a good opponent, it's not a great opponent. It's not like starting against Clemson, but Pittsburgh is a known team because it really gets difficult. After the Tennessee Tech game, it's at Florida, at Missouri. Those don't look like promising sites. South Carolina probably, and then the Ole Miss, Alabama, Kentucky, Georgia gauntlet. How do you evaluate what these first couple of games could mean ultimately for the Vols?
Yeah, they're going to be real important for Tennessee because, you mentioned it, you got it up there. It gets real daunting there to the end. So, take advantage of Bowling Green, Pittsburgh, Tennessee Tech, some of these teams that should be easier. Now, you mentioned Pittsburgh could be pretty good. And, they're celebrating the Johnny Majors thing there. So, there might be extra emotions there from Pitt. But you got to take advantage of these teams that you think Tennessee's got a chance to be that. You can't let anything happen like a couple years ago when Georgia State comes back. You can't let anything like that happen. So take advantage of these, these first couple of teams because, as you mentioned, it's going to get real tough to win games for Tennessee there at the end. So, rack up the wins while they can. Talking
to Josh Lane, who's the sports editor of the UT Daily Beacon. Josh, let's just talk about the attitude, the mood on campus. We're about to see football in just under 2 weeks now. The first game on a Thursday night. Last year was a mess. We all know that. But what's it feel like, and how much different is it, even with COVID concerns rising around the country?
Yeah, I think everybody's excited to be back on campus and have football back in Tennessee. I would say everyone's still kind of, skeptic about Tennessee. We got the new coach, but I don't think everyone's jumping on the bandwagon yet. I think, with the history that Tennessee has, they're kind of reserved as far as that. But everybody's excited to be back. They're excited to have football. Neyland's going to be full capacity again. It's its 100th year of the stadium. So everyone's excited about that. But I think they're still, holding off from declaring Tennessee the national championship at this point.
Josh, a final thought. You mentioned Pruitt earlier, and I know that's a topic nobody really wants to go to, but it ended in an absolute disaster. And then we have the school chancellor and the president coming out and throwing him under the bus. We're still trying to figure. Phil Fulmer leaves in a matter of days. We're still trying to figure out really what's going to happen on that front. I realize nobody is saying anything, but what do you pick up around campus? How big of a concern is that impending investigation or the investigation that's currently going on?
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd situation because, as you mentioned, no one really talks about it. It's something I think that's kind of on the back of everybody's mind, like, well, maybe if we're actually good and they somehow, make the playoffs or a bowl game or something like that, they might revoke it because you never know what the punishment's going to be. There's always the thought that Tennessee could impose a punishment on itself. But they don't really announce much as far as that goes. They don't let the media in and all of that. So there's still some, questions, some drawbacks there because nobody really knows. But that's just kind of how it is with these investigations. And if you ask the coach, all they'll give you is we're cooperating, we're doing our part, and you don't get much more to go off than that. So I think that's just kind of something that's on the back of everybody's mind, where we're not too worried about it now, but maybe towards the end of the year it could have some consequences on Tennessee.
Josh, let's talk about you for a second before we go. You're in a coveted position. A lot of folks would like to be the sports editor of the school paper in a place like Knoxville. What's your? I was about to ask you what's your backstory. You're a college student, but where are you from, and what are your thoughts moving forward as you tackle this job?
Yeah, I'm from Louisville, Tennessee. It's just right outside Knoxville. I've been here in this area my whole life. And so I'm just pretty excited to be here at the Daily Beacon to get this opportunity to do some pretty cool things, cover Tennessee sports. Hopefully I have a career that continues in sports journalism. That's what I want to do. That's what I love. But yeah, the Beacon's been great. I've had nothing but great experiences so far. Last year was kind of weird with COVID and everything's online, but happy to be back in person, even though, I'm like 4 days into it at this point, but it's been nothing but great so far.
Well, all the best, Josh. Thanks for making time. We hope to see if we come that direction, and maybe you could give us some old timers a tour of the school newspaper and see if it's still there.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much. What a pleasure to have Josh on. And that is something that we are going to try to do as much as possible. We've done it 3 times tonight. We'll continue to do it as we work our way through this week. And as I mentioned a couple hours ago, when we go on campuses, we really do like talking to the campus. I'll never forget, I think it was 2, maybe 3 years ago, one of the most memorable moments I think we've ever had on a Friday is we had the editor, the sports editor, and another editor of the Daily Beacon while we were up there at Ayers Hall, and it was just amazing time, just reflecting back on the years and talking about these young people in the prime of their life as they get ready to tackle the end of their college career and what's ahead for them. We'll take a break. More of your phone calls right here at 855-242-7285.
You're listening to the Paul Feinbaum Show podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Fansville, a college football utopia.
Fansville.
Where the lakes are stocked with ice-cold Dr. Pepper, and the autumn winds rustle with the sweet smell of football glory.
And Dr. Pepper.
It's a land flowing with onion dip, where even the food pyramid is shaped like a hot dog.
Footlong.
Where every yard gained is a yard worth celebrating, and every celebration is beyond excessive.
With ice-cold Dr. Pepper.
Return to glory this season with Fansville by Dr. Pepper. Grab some today.
Goodyear believes in the power of moving forward. No matter if it's on the track, the court, or the field, movement makes us want to be more. It pushes us to go further, to show the world what we can do. Movement has the unique ability to change our perspective, to challenge us, to work for a better tomorrow. Movement can even bring us together when we're still. Because if we're focused on the next move, we don't have to worry about what's behind us. Goodyear, more driven.
And we are back. We still have 45 minutes to go. Let's get some more calls in here. Anthony in Louisiana. Hello, Anthony.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
We're doing great. Thank you.
Oh, good. Hey, look, I want to just put a little input about Texas and Oklahoma, if you can hear me. Texas, sure. I think is not going to do that well in the SEC. I think Oklahoma's going to come in and compete, Just an opinion. What you think?
Well, I think Oklahoma will slip in here very quickly and do quite well. I think ultimately Texas will do better, but Texas has to up its recruiting to the level of Alabama, Oklahoma. I mean, they're not that far away. They just need to go up in class, and I think ultimately they will. To me, without this, Texas was going to continue to be mired in mediocrity, but I think the SEC could potentially give them the shot in the arm that's necessary. Hey, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Jim in Georgia, you're on the air. Hello, Jim.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Jim, we're doing great. Thank you.
Man, thanks for taking my call. Long-time viewer, first-time caller.
Well, I'm glad to hear from you.
You had a caller earlier speaking about Georgia and Clemson playing. We used to play all the time and had some great games back in the day. Some that, Georgia won with long field goals. If you want to do you as a favor, man, pull up that Larry Munson call of Rex Robinson kicking the field goal to beat Clemson. That's awesome.
I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah, that was Kevin Butler, wasn't it?
Well, Kevin Butler kicked one, but Rex Robinson kicked one.
Oh, Rex Robinson, okay.
It was like a mile.
I forgot that. Well, yeah, I mean, the rivalry is fantastic, and I think everyone is, forget the fact that it's two of the top teams in the country, but this game really ought to be back on campuses, and I hope it will be soon. Latham is up next. Go right ahead, Latham. You are on the air.
Hey there, Mr. Feinbaum. First-time caller, man. I'm just so excited that I got a chance to come in with you.
Well, thank you.
Just 2 things I wanted to say. I'm just so excited. I don't know really what to talk about. But I think we're going to Bama. I'm a full-time Bama fan, me and my wife. I live here in Northport. I think 2 hour trouble games is going to be Ole Miss and Texas A&M.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Ole Miss game is at home. Now, that should help a little bit, but you're right. Ole Miss is going to be a threat to everyone this year. It's just a matter of whether their defense can shore up. And quite frankly, the A&M game is circled. There's not an Aggie fan in the world that's not thinking about that afternoon.
Yes, sir. But, hey, look here, man. I'm just so excited to get your voice on the phone, man. I watch your show every single day, me and my wife, and we are diehard Alabama fans.
Well, Latham, I really appreciate your calling in, and I hope you'll do it again. And you guys just hang in there, and we can't wait for the season to get started here in a couple of days.
Absolutely, man. Have a great week.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It was our pleasure to talk to you. Let's continue with more phone calls. And Chris is up next in Arkansas. Hey, Chris.
Mr. Fireball, how's it going, buddy?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Hey, man, my question for you, I'm a diehard LSU fan, but my question for you is about Coach Saban. What does he do differently that other coaches do or in all of football? How does he keep winning year in and year out with new coaches every year? What does he do differently?
Well, I think there are a couple of things because you're right. His staff is always in upheaval because of success. He is a detail process-oriented coach. What does that mean? That means that everything is planned out, plotted down to the second. And I think the one thing he does not get credit for is his evaluation skills. He makes mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes in any sport, but he makes very few. And the reason why he makes so few is he is a student of the game. He never stops looking at film. He never stops evaluating. And then he makes good decisions. And again, you can afford to make better decisions when you have the field of players to choose from, like Alabama does. But you don't want to. I think he tries to avoid discipline issues, which will upset and perhaps poison his team. And I think ultimately success builds on top of success. But he has always said his success is coming primarily from the process. He has it laid out. He doesn't deviate, and then the execution comes after that.
Right. Now, well, I appreciate it, Paul. One more thing. How do you think LSU is going to do this year with, I know there's big talks of going back to the 2019 year, which is, as we all know, is a long shot, but as an LSU fan, we'd like to see it. How do you think they're going to stack up in the SEC?
Quite well. I'm pretty high on LSU. And, I mean, the first game makes me a little uncomfortable because for this reason, UCLA will have one game under their belt. And that is a tremendous advantage in college football because, so few teams get that jump because we don't, week zero is not something we do very much of with major games. UCLA plays Hawaii this week. I'm really interested in that game. But other than that, I think LSU has a really good chance to have a big year. If I looked at the schedule, which we are looking at, I think Mississippi State's a little tricky just because of where it sits. I just noticed a Kentucky game. You can't go to Kentucky without expecting difficulty. Florida at home is a real advantage. I mean, Ole Miss is a little troublesome too on the road, and Alabama. I mean, as I look at LSU's schedule, I like the fact that A&M is at home. But they have some sneaky, tricky games on the road, which make me a little bit concerned. But having talked myself into the concern, I'm going to talk myself out of it. As long as Max Johnson stays healthy, I think they have a really good chance of contending. If he goes down, it's over. There's no turning around. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Harry in Louisville is up next.
Hey
there, Harry.
How you doing, Paul?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Look, I wanted to talk to you about the college football, Paul. That's what I want to talk to you about.
Of course.
I don't like the idea in Clemson. Clemson, they don't play anybody, Paul. That means they'll be in the playoff every year because they don't play nobody. Now they don't put Oklahoma and Texas in there with Alabama, that means Alabama might not even come out of that no more. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you're right, and you know, the one thing about Clemson you have to give them credit for, their record against the big teams is fantastic, especially the SEC. I mean, but there are some theories about why are they so successful in these big games, and you just laid it out. They play a pathetically easy schedule. They don't incur as many injuries as other schools do because of the competition, and they skate. I'm thinking about Clemson's losses over the years. They've had a couple of inexplicable losses, like the Syracuse or Pittsburgh. But I mean, this year, I mean, let's move the Georgia game aside because we all know about that. South Carolina State, Georgia Tech at NC State. I mean, that's a tough game in the ACC. Boston College, terrible. Syracuse has been dreadful the last couple of years. Pittsburgh, very average. Florida State has been way down. Louisville had their run, and you know, maybe they're on the comeback trail. UConn, Wake Forest. That is not. You compare that schedule to the one we just showed a minute ago with LSU. They're not comparable. And but I think this: if Clemson loses to Georgia, I don't think it's a sure thing. I know a lot of my friends here think that it's automatic. They win the ACC, but I think that they better hope somebody else loses though, because it also depends on how that game plays out.
Yeah, but like I say, Paul, I understand. But see, I feel like Clemson they'll be in the playoffs every year. They don't have no pressure. They can lose 2 games and still might be in it.
Well, I disagree with that. But you know, last year they lost at Notre Dame. Now that was a really high quality loss. But you know, is it fair? No, it's not fair, and that's why we need an expanded playoff. But thanks for the call, Harry. You take care of yourself. Let's continue in a moment. We have a break coming up here. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285.
You're listening to the Paul Feinbaum Show podcast.
Do you own or rent your home? Sure you do. And I bet it can be hard work. You know it's easy? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowner's or renter's insurance along with your auto policy. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. Go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com.
Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey Hussle.
Nipsey.
There's a kinship between hoopers and rappers. From 30 for 30 Podcast and The Undefeated, this is the King of Crenshaw.
Hustle and motivate. I mean, if that ain't like the ethos of being an elite athlete, I don't know what is.
Nip was my superhero.
For us, it was all about how we could better our city.
Life is really a marathon. Listen now on SiriusXM, Pandora, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast.
And we are back, and we'll continue with more of your calls. And let's check in. I'll do this right eventually. Chris is up next in Alabama. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Paul. How's it going? It's been a while since I talked to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to get a few things off my chest. First of all, this Joe Goodman guy posted another article on AL.com questioning Brian Harson's leadership skills. First of all, I don't know where he gets his journalistic credentials and why he has the integrity to put a article on AL.com. People read that stuff, and in this country right now, perception is reality, and when they read that stuff, they believe it. Brian Harsin is leading by example. He is not conforming to the pressure of the media or sports writers or anything else. He is a personal choice that he has decided he wants to make, and he preaches that to his team.
Yeah, Chris, I've read the article that you're talking about, and I've tried in the second half of my career not to make judgments on other people's opinions in a matter like this. However, whether you like it or not, ultimately Brian Harsin is in charge of that program. And I don't have all the facts because I really don't know what's going on down there other than, unfortunately, he is out with COVID. I know that he has been asked about the vaccine, and I think we all know what his answers are, but at some point, that is his choice to make, and I agree with you on that.
I just want to get your opinion on another thing. I don't understand why you're so high on LSU. They went 5-5 last year. They're without their starting quarterback again. They had a good win against Florida last year, but they didn't have Kyle Pitts, and the guy threw a shoe that created a penalty to win the game for them. I just don't have a good feeling with them going in the Rose Bowl against UCLA, man.
Well, Chris, I tell you, that game's critical, and if they lose that game, it's going to have a very negative effect. Ed Ogeron does this to me every year. He sells optimism, and I'm making the mistake of buying it. I didn't buy it last year because there were just too many off-the-field issues and too many players that were not going to be around. But I'm buying more of it this year than I have in the past. Thank you for the call. Cat Daddy is next.
Big Paul, looking good, sounding good. Let me ask you one question. Caesars has now aligned themselves with the Fiesta Bowl. Do you see more of the gambling and institutions getting into college football more and more now that the players now can accept money?
Absolutely. Right now, sports gambling money is funding almost every media entity and countless others. And I'm not talking, I am talking about ESPN because there's a lot of sports wagering shows on this network, and there's a lot of money filtering in. But it is an enormous amount of money that is happening, and whether you agree or disagree, it's here, and it's going to be part of the future. I have a lot of friends who have left reasonably high-profile jobs to go to work for DraftKings, FanDuel, all these other entities in terms of not to take bets, but to write media articles about them. And so you can't escape it. It is here, whether you gamble or not, and I don't. It is becoming a big part of every professional sports, and now it is creeping into college sports.
Well, it's been here for years and years. It's just now being more accessible. People see it more. One other question, Paul. Could you put up to South Carolina a schedule for this year, and I can tell you exactly what we're going to win and what we're going to lose?
Well, we will do that in just mere moments because South Carolina is a program that's coming off of a terrible season. For those, it takes a couple of seconds for you to see it, but Eastern Illinois is the first game, and then it's at East Carolina for those who are in your car, at Georgia, Kentucky, Troy, at Tennessee, Vanderbilt, at A&M, Florida, Missouri, at Missouri, Auburn, and Clemson. Okay, so you tell me, Cat Daddy, what's it look like?
Well, the local talk sports station down here said, we'll beat Eastern Illinois, we'll beat East Carolina because they ain't what they used to be. After that, Georgia, Kentucky, we'll lose to Troy, might be able to beat Tennessee. That's a question. Vanderbilt's a question. A&M, what's his name out there in San Antonio, man, I'll be glad to hear this. They're going to whomp our butts. Florida's going to whomp us. Missouri's going to whomp us. Auburn's going to whomp us. And I ain't even going to watch the Clemson game. I'm going to crawl into bed and put sheets over my head.
You don't sound too optimistic, Cat Daddy.
No, but Firebomb, you got to be realistic. It's a first-year coach. I think Beamer's a good idea, a good start, but it's going to take time, Carolina fans, and like we've been saying for the last 65 years I've been on this planet, wait till next year.
You be well. Take care of yourself, Cat Daddy. Luke is up next in Mississippi. Hello, Luke.
Hey, Mr. Paul. How you doing?
We're doing well. Thank you.
All right. I appreciate you taking my call. I've been watching the program since 2016. When I first started watching, I've enjoyed sports, but I wasn't in it as much as most people are. Especially my brother Joe, who calls about Ole Miss all the time, thinks they're always going to win. But the thing that I'm calling for, you get a lot of callers talking about things that aren't necessarily sports related, and I think it's great that you give people a platform to talk about these other things. But here recently, you've been getting a lot of calls about the COVID situation and all that. And, I've been a nurse for going on 11 years, and it's, I hear a lot of irresponsible things being said because, like that guy earlier, like, well, I'm healthy and I already had it, and my, my antibodies I'm never gonna catch it again, and all this stuff, and yada yada yada, and that does go a little bit of ways, but it just seems to be that there's a whole lot of misinformation going on. I read peer-reviewed articles and based on evidence-based practice, and it just really scares me because you get a whole lot of information that's not vetted, and when I look at what happened last year and how it was a real slow rollout for football, college football to start, I didn't even know how many games were going to be getting played, and it's starting to scare me now because, the fear-mongering behind it is starting to make me worry that with how many people they're going to allow into stadiums and all that, right now it looks good, but the more the media pushes it and all that, I'm afraid I'm afraid they might start rolling back. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I do know what you're saying, Luke, and I have some friends who feel the same way. They keep telling me, you don't really think you're going to be out there traveling this fall, and I say, yes, I do. And they're in similar fields to you, and I respect that very, very much. I've never. Last year was a little bit different. Last year, none of us knew what we were getting into. We do now. You have a lot of experience that.
Well, it was so new. It was
sure.
New then, yeah.
And I don't think where a year ago today we were still we were still wondering what the next couple of weeks would look like. We're not really wondering anymore. I say we aren't, those of us who do this show, but I know you are. And it is a very dangerous situation out there. And I know that sometimes because you have a caller who propagates one theory, it means that you are necessarily endorsing it. I'm not. But I have people say, why would you even let that person on? My feeling is to let people talk and let everyone else decide for themselves.
Right, and I appreciate that because there's a lot of opinions out there, and not everybody has the experience and the knowledge behind it. A lot of people are hearing things on Facebook groups or from friends and family, and they don't really know. Like that guy earlier was like, well, I have a 75% chance that this isn't going to happen, and I don't know where he pulled that number out of his butt, but that is not how it works. Well,
Luke, I think as you know better than I do, the biggest concern that I hear from healthcare workers, and you are one, is the ICU situation. Because if that goes haywire, then the healthcare system shuts down, and we're all in a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm. And that's all it takes is just that one hot spot for it to blow out, and next thing you know, you have the college sports association. They're gonna, well, it's too late now. We gotta start shutting things down because it's post contact and this and that. They very easily could do that, and I really hope that doesn't happen. I'm praying it don't.
Luke, before you go, how is it where you are? What's the situation?
Well, I'm in Tupelo, Mississippi, and there's people in the hospital that have it, you know, but I live in a town of 38,000 people, so I'm in a very small control group, you know what I'm saying? So bigger cities, not so much, you know, but from what I see here, it doesn't seem like it's I mean, people here don't even really wear masks, you know what I mean? As long as you are doing the social distancing and that.
No, I grew up not far from Tupelo and have been through there a million times, so I hear you loud and clear. Hey, thanks so much for the call. You be well. You be safe. We are officially out of time for this program. We appreciate all of you for being a part of it. Some really interesting guests today. We'll see you right here tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Feinbaum Show podcast. The Paul Feinbaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network, beginning at 3 Eastern.